Welcome to episode 141 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Down to the Wire edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and my co-host Josh Fine is shot out of a canyon, as the great Benny Parsons once said in a Freudian slip. Josh's Jacksonville Jaguars just made a trade just probably about a half hour ago. It went through. Trent Baalke moved their former two-time 1,000-yard rusher James Robinson for, I think, for a sloppy Joe. I think.
Yeah, they've traded James Robinson for a sixth-round pick that could become a fifth if he reaches 600 yards on the season. And actually it happened about an hour ago. But it's just, the compensation. I mean, people are saying like, oh, it's not enough, and to be honest, I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. I feel like, for an undrafted free agent, who has been injured last year and hasn't seen a lot of carries this year, and had a good rookie season. You set the record for most yards by an undrafted free agent for a running back, I think. But regardless of that fact, I actually kind of do think the compensation is probably where it would have been, or where it needed to be. But the problem is that the move lacks a lot of foresight, because Travis Etienne, as good as he is so far, he's got a lot of speed, and he's been able to take runs to the outside. I don't trust him running up the middle just yet. He's in the preseason. He had some good carries up the middle, but regular season, just feel like he hasn't been as effective between the tackles as J-Rob has, because J-Rob, he doesn't have the speed, but he's got that ability to find the hole and make something of it, and that's why he's been so good. Is just a running back who somehow finds yards when there isn't, I guess, and that's why I'm kind of tilted, I guess, about this move, because he got a effective 1-2 punch, and they're getting rid of it, and I don't think Travis Etienne's quite ascended to that RB1 role. And then also on the fact that Etienne's allowed the ninth most pressures for running backs so far this season, and the only game he started was this past game against the Giants, and so that's pretty high for someone who hasn't received the majority of the snaps. And even if that, he's only getting about 10 to 15 carries or touches a game at most, and all of that. So James Robinson's only allowed one pressure this season, and he's in my opinion, more complete. He just doesn't have the speed, and in my opinion, the Jaguars need to focus more on the run, and they're trying to focus in on the pass when this year passing is down throughout the league. The defenses have adjusted well with, I think, cover 2 defense, and I think a lot of teams are trying to run the ball more this year, and just lack of foresight. And we were talking about earlier, just reeks of a Trent Baalke trade. Type of trade, I guess. Although we've only had him as a full-time general manager for a year and a half now. So this is, I think, the first major in-season move that they've made, but still just reeks of that type of trade. I guess that he was known for in San Francisco, and
he
all
was
that.
known for a lot of things in San Francisco, and most of them things were not good.
Yeah.
They had the 10-year anniversary of the Super Bowl team. Jim Harbaugh was on a bye week from Michigan. A lot of the guys that played on that Super Bowl team were there, and big-time players, probably for the exception of the quarterback, largely because I'm sure Jed York doesn't want that heat. Though when that quarterback is probably just as good as the current quarterback we have, that's a whole other point. But I also was thinking about this, Josh. Before I figure we're going to start football here, we're changing it up today, but you have JaMycal Hasty, the former 49er, on your roster. I think I'm not sure what your depth chart is.
So
Is so
chart right
is
now
there
is the depth chart right now is Travis Etienne after the James Robinson trade. Travis Etienne, and then Jermichael Hasty, and then you got Snoop Connor, who hasn't even played in I don't even think he's played it down this season or even been in the lineup. I think he's been a healthy scratch for all the games so far.
so I guess I ask you this as our Jacksonville fan and knowledgeable person here, is the move with James Robinson pushed in part because they want to see the Snoop Connor? Is it that Jermichael Hasty and Snoop Connor along in with ETN in a RBBC is their best option because they know that James Robinson isn't in their future plans? Or, I mean, I get it. It's a
Yeah,
bad trade. It's a bad trade because you're not getting a hell of a lot of value, in my opinion. The Jets are going to run the ball, and it's going to be a balance. So they know that they're hedging. They're hedging on it becoming a fifth. But at the end of the day, are you going to find somebody who's going to do that kind of production in the fifth round? Are you going to find somebody that can produce on the field in the fifth round to replace that production? Generally speaking, that's not going to
nope.
happen, and especially with Trent Baalke's track record of drafting too. But that's my question to you. What do you see in regards to the rest of your depth chart and running backs?
I mean, I think it's just moved to purely to show that, or I guess give the RB1 role to Travis Etienne. I don't think it really has to do with any of the other running backs except for, well, Jermichael Hasty, because they've been giving him a lot of carries, or significantly more carries than the last couple of weeks. And, they started featuring him more than Robinson and, complimenting him with Etienne. And Hasty's got a lot of speed, and that's good. And he's, got kind of that same type of gear as Etienne does and everything. And I like that. It's just Etienne just has had ball protection issues, pass protection issues, all that stuff. I mean, I think it's really is that they didn't see a future with Robinson and uh, I guess beyond this season, and I guess they wanted to get more trade value from him while they could. And yeah, I mean, only a fifth round pick and or a sixth rounder that could be a fifth rounder if they could gets 600 yards on the season. He's already at 340, so he only needs 260 yards. So that's plenty of time throughout the rest of the season as long as he stays healthy to achieve that, and that becomes a fifth rounder. But the fifth rounder, I mean, day three pick. Yeah, Balky has not been good at day three picks so far, and most teams, day three, not really good round. Most teams aren't really good at picking in the third day of the draft, but the Jaguars especially have not been great at that either in this tenure. I mean, they had some pretty good steals in late rounds with the previous manager Caldwell, and Balky just hasn't quite had that hasn't had that ability yet. And I mean, I guess you're a San Francisco fan. From prior years, from your experience, that his late round picks were not great, if anything.
Most of his draft picks were not good because he had a thing with drafting guys that were hurt and putting them on ice and thinking they'd come back. And the Niner current regime is dealing with that when they traded DeForest Buckner for a first round draft pick, which they used on the fuck. Now I'm forgetting his name. The defensive tackle. Uh, Give me a
Buckner.
second here. Yeah, not Buckner because they traded him to essentially draft this guy. Um, they I mean, yeah, and Armstead they kept instead of Buckner too. That's another one that was just a terrible. I mean, I get that he's a good person, he's great in the area, but he's just not that good of a player. And now that they don't have him, I mean, we're going to get into that in a minute here once we're done talking about the Jacksonville side. I know there's more for you to talk about since Jaguars ended up losing a close game to the New York Giants, which is crazy to say that the New York Giants are
6-1.
6-1. Javon Kinlaw, that's who. So it's a similar kind of pattern. In a sense, I'm not sure based on the last couple of years how many of those injury guys he's drafted, but his awareness and evaluation of talent is questionable. Um, I mean, you're not going to question what they did number one last year, and drafting his teammate wasn't a bad move either. At the end of the day, they're both dynamic players, and they have tons of ability and potential. Now, whether that ever gets shown, we have, I guess, another couple of years, 2.5 years to find out in regards, or maybe 3.5 years to find out in regards to both Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. But after that, yeah, you have some defensive guys you drafted this year, Devin Lloyd. Your defense has been really good, been pretty good for most weeks. It's tough. You have to be able to close the deal. And, I mean, yesterday going against a tough New York Giants team who just kind of grinds, it's asking a lot. Daniel Jones has become a different person all of a sudden. He's become like somebody who went to QB camp with the Mannings. Oh wait, that's right, he did. And he looked like a sieve, and now all of a sudden he looks like he's going to get franchise tagged along with Lamar Jackson, maybe a few other people at the quarterback position. But it's not like the Jaguars weren't that they were in that game. Every Giants game comes down, it's a one possession game. And that's where a lot of teams are. If you can't win those one possession games, you might be looking for a job. If you win those one possession games, you make the playoffs, but there's no guarantee that you're going to last once you get there. The Giants are in a very tough division. 3 of the 4 teams in that division are winning records. The Washington Generals beat Aaron. I'm about to name my team. One of my teams, Aaron's Ayahuasca. But the fact of the matter is, what are your thoughts on the game yesterday? Now post pre-trade of James Robinson and what took place. Now that you're going to London for your yearly London game against Brett Rippon and the Denver Broncos, not Russell Wilson and his horrendous commercials.
Yeah, I mean this game, pre-trade. I mean, yeah, I mean they played well for the most part. It's just key situations, the key downs that they you know failed to execute on. Travis or not Travis, yeah, Travis Etienne fumbled in the red zone, and like I said earlier, that's a problem. And that's why he's in my opinion, still just a complimentary piece, and that's answers your question of whether you trade Robinson or not. Is I mean the other guy still fumbles and everything, and didn't even get touched either when he fumbled. He said I guess the ball hit his knee or his knee hit the ball and popped it out as he was getting tackled. So there's your answer there. But that happened, and then Travis, or I keep saying Travis, but because they have the TR prefix to their name, but Trevor went and missed Zay Jones on a deep over route that could have gotten a touchdown, and then they had a 2nd and 5 that with end around reverse with Christian Kirk in the 4th quarter that got stopped short for a loss. People were complaining about the spot of the ball, kind of questionable, but the question about that is the following downs, 3rd down, 3rd and 1, they went with wildcat snap to Travis Etienne, and see, that's the wrong kind of play call in 3rd and 1. I mean, I don't really understand why you don't put Robinson in there, or even the other running backs, Hasty, and line up heavy and hand it off like with power, behind your running back. And I don't understand that. And then 4th and 1, they go for a QB sneak, and they already did a QB sneak earlier in the game with Trevor Lawrence, and that wasn't really the move. I mean, doing it again like that, if you do it with repetition, the other team's going to figure it out, and the Giants were ready for it that time after not stopping it earlier in the game. So, and then on top of that, Doug Peterson had the opportunity to kick a field goal to go up 7, and instead, they go up, turn it over on downs, and then the Jets go in, or the Giants go and get a touchdown after that, and then flips the game right there with that type of swing, and then from there, Jaguars almost came away with the victory at the end with Christian Kirk getting stopped at the 1 yard line. But another factor to bring into that is the Jaguars don't have a number one wide receiver. You know, they failed to achieve that this past off season. They got a bunch of slot receivers and possession guys and stuff like that, but they don't have the big number one receiver that can really test the boundaries and go up and get it type of receiver. And that's why if you watch the ending of that game, they struggled to move the ball and got a lot of help from penalties there. And, if they had a number one receiver, it would have been a lot easier to, be able to move the ball in that kind of situation and, be able to set up, some opportunities in the red zone, which they've struggled here this season. And, that's another thing why you got to be critical of Balky right now is because people gave him credit, the first couple games of the season because it looked like they were doing good, but now we gotten past the kind of the X's and O's part where everybody kind of schemes their way to wins. Now this part of season where it starts to the physical traits of the team start to kind of take over. Balky failed to get a wide receiver, number one wide receiver, like I said, and spent a lot of money in that room this offseason. And then on top of that, defensively, they spent a lot of money there, and defense hasn't been as productive as it was at the beginning of the season. So, there's a lot of criticism that could go there, and how they structured the team, especially with some of their depth in the cornerback position, and then defensive tackle, not defensive end, but defensive tackle. They had issues with depth there too, and not a lot of not a lot of movement there too. So just this game is definitely one that they should have won, and just not the way that it should have happened, and they should have won that one. And now they have to go to London in a must-win game, and they're facing Russell Wilson, probably the worst offense in the NFL right now. Or maybe the NFL's at least worst.
Not
Yeah,
Russell Wilson, it's
yeah.
Brett Rippon because he's Russell Wilson's going to be out for a
Oh,
few weeks with a
so
hamstring.
he's out. Okay, so it's Brett Rippon. So it's not Russell Wilson, but it's still the Broncos, and they've not been productive at all.
They are one of the worst teams, and another guy that you had as
Yeah,
your offensive coordinator
I
is
mean,
on the hot seat.
Nate Hackett's on the hot seat, and at least he made Blake Bortles look good for one season. So, you have that. But, yeah, I mean, Hackett just hasn't been good coach so far. Has failed to manage a lot of games, and they've provided a lot of joke material and criticism on the internet on Twitter. So, you have that as well. So, uh, it is a must-win game situation, and what's essentially is an away game, in front of England and everything. So, just not a good look. Uh, I mean, with the loss to the Giants, but they have opportunity to go win against the Broncos, I guess. But there's going to be a lot of pressure on the line, and the Jaguars looks like they're a team that they really have to execute all the plays perfectly, or else, they have a harder time being able to really close out wins, and that's kind of been the difference so far. As you look at the Giants, they're not really good, I think, but they've been able to stick to the fundamentals and stick to what works, and that's how they've been able to pull out victories. Whereas the Jaguars, even though they've had a lot of production in terms of yards and everything, they haven't been able to close it out because key situations they just either don't have quite the personnel, or they overthink it. So that's going to be the storyline for the rest of the season, is how can they figure out to overcome their shortcomings, I guess, and go back to what works. So we'll see, I guess.
It's a long season. It's been quite crazy, and The AFC side, of course, there are definite teams that are elite teams. The AFC is the tougher conference of the two. I mean, you have Buffalo on the bye, and they look even better just sitting there. And they get to stay at home and play Aaron at home on Sunday Night Football this coming week. So I can only imagine how that ugly that game could get with Josh Allen and company doing their thing. Tennessee essentially has gotten back to life with a win against Indianapolis to the point where they were hitting Matt Ryan so hard he had a shoulder sprain and he's going to be out. But in turn, Frank Reich, in I guess, a desperation / owner move, is benching Matt Ryan for Sam Ehlinger for the rest of the season. And Nick Foles, he of the Philly special, he of the statue that is next to Lincoln Financial Field, where across the street from Citizens Bank Park, where the Philadelphia Phillies will be trying to beat the Houston Assholes in the World Series. I mean, there's a whole lot going on in the NFL. Jacksonville is not out of it by any stretch if they can get things together. But it's going to be tough even if you make it in terms of the AFC to actually be able to get past the likes of the Niners what I mean, the Bills and Kansas City. They are so much better than the rest of the teams. It's like a different world. The Niners got baptized by Kermit the Frog, and it wasn't even close. We get Christian McCaffrey, which was a huge boost, huge jolt to this roster and to this team with everything that's been going on. And they come out and lay a fucking egg. Jimmy Garoppolo, he of running out of the end zone a few weeks ago. That's wow. Is that a pick six? Or no, Bailey Zapp. Oh, they put Bailey Zappi in the game. And did he throw to what the hell? Oh, so they pulled. Oh man, that's something. They pulled Mac Jones for Bailey Zappi, and he just threw a touchdown. Oh crap! He was short though, and it hit the ground. There's no way he had control. But the Niners got baptized on every aspect of the game. Their offense sucked. Because Jimmy Garoppolo missed, even when he didn't miss balls, then the guys that were supposed to make catches missed, dropped them. Running game was okay. I think it'll be better this week with Christian McCaffrey getting a full week of practice. I mean, Brandon Ayuk did work, but Deebo Samuel really didn't exist. GK on National Tight End Day had a great day. Dropped at least one ball he probably should have caught. The offensive line got completely smoked. Trent Williams, coming back off of his injury, looked a little rusty for being the OG on the offensive line. Highest ranked offensive lineman ever in the top 100. Trent Williams wasn't that same guy. Mike McGlinchey is a fucking turnstile. And the right side of our offensive line is mediocre at best. Jimmy Garoppolo gave up a safety, fumbled the ball the next possession, and threw an interception. He threw an interception in the red zone in the first half when they could have went up 17-3, I believe, or 17-10. And they were up 10-0. And then he throws this inexplicable ball trying to throw it to Ray McLeod off of his back foot in the end zone with two people there when Jeff Wilson had came out of the flat and did an out and up. He could have literally thrown it there. He could have thrown it. He tried to, or he threw it to GK. His thing is he was trying to throw it to GK, and he completely whiffed, and he threw a pick. And then cocksucker Kermit the Frog drives down the field, and they got points or whatever. I mean, it's just bad. I mean, they picked on Mooney Ward, Shavarius Ward the whole day. It didn't matter who they put on him, whether it was Juju, whether it was MVS, whatever. Mecole Hardman had a 3-touchdown day all of a sudden. I mean, that's tells you. I mean, Travis Kelce was actually quiet yesterday. So the point is they took Travis Kelce away. Problem is all the wide receivers were wide open. Hufanga actually got an interception after coming back from concussion protocol early, but that was off a tip ball. But then after that, the defense ceased to exist. Nick Bosa probably got held a bunch. They didn't call it. They were so close. There's a couple of 3rd and longs, which is going to be like the 3rd and long against the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be the death of the San Francisco 49ers and many teams, because Kermit the Frog figures out a way to get out of it all the time. And guys that used to play for 49ers beat him too. So it was terrible in that sense. One of my fantasy teams is 11th out of 12. I have no luck. I'm about to lose. I just changed my team name to Aaron's Ayahuasca. And I'm about to lose the 3rd place team. Last week, I scored 50. I mean, it's a very low scoring, very standard points league. It's no PPR, none of the other things. And I swear to God, I feel like I've never scored so few points in a week in fantasy. I lost to a team that's 10th, and I only scored 52 points. Lost the week before that, was a close game. I beat the last place team. That's the last time I've won. And I scored 114 points, which was the most points, or second most points that week. I beat the 2nd place team, which is crazy now. Drott Jr., fuck him. So it's like, it's been a rough time. I mean, plenty of time to go. 6 teams make the playoffs in that league, so I'm not completely out of it, but it's not pretty. It looks very dumpster fire-ish for me. I'm now 2 games out of a playoff spot there. In my league, I had 63 points from Joe Burrow with the bonuses. I got the 9 points of bonus for Joe Burrow because he threw for 481. I got 3.4 points for every completion for the 34 completions he had. He rushed for 20 yards and a rush touchdown, 4 touchdowns. And because the team I'm playing, Steve, has Patrick Mahomes and his wide receivers did something, because both of my wide receivers, I'll tell you, Josh, I don't know about you. I don't know if you've ever seen where both of your wide receivers go for 2 receptions, 12 yards, and both get hurt and get eliminated out of the game. That's
Never
what
seen
happened
that
to me.
before.
Well, it happened to me. So Amon-Ra St. Brown got knocked out. Nobody knows where, when, or how. And then the Detroit Lions ceased to exist. After returning from whatever injury, he had concussion, something. He was on concussion protocol now. I don't know. It was some other injury. Then DK Metcalf hurt his knee or leg or something. He had some sort of leg injury against the LA Chargers of Anaheim and all the other residing counties. And I'm just going to add this here. I think it's 4.1. Yeah, I got 4.1 points from my wide receivers. So Christian Kirk is on Steve's team, and He got 19 out. So he got 34.6. So I lost just right there. The 34, so I had 21 points on there, and then I lost 30, so that's minus 9. I'm down 22 right now because he has Ramondre Stevenson, who even got a tackle. So I think that's helping his score because when on a turnover, New England, the Ramondre Stevenson, I think, on the interception, and they just turned the ball over again, Chicago. So now it's getting to be a bit of a sweat while the Chicago Bears are not doing anything. How is Dietrich Wise not doing anything? Are you for real? What the fuck? They're turning the ball over, doing all this crap. He hasn't done it. Ugh, this is bullshit. This is such bullshit. And then Thornton hasn't. Ugh, I fucking hate the New England Patriots. It's garbage. I'm gonna lose this game, but I'm gonna fall to 7th. I'll be behind Steve now. I'll fall behind Steve. Josh, you've had a rough week this week. Losing
to Professor
J, and you're gonna end up being 9th in the dual standings. After finishing 9th the week before, but winning. But yeah.
Oh yeah, so, 9th in terms of points this week.
Points, yeah, 9th in terms of points. So I have to go through all that, but my goodness, this is fantasy football will make you wonder about the world. But it's life.
It's October. It's the hunt for Red October, and Halloween's next Monday, so we haven't even got to that yet, and it's already Jags spooking everybody. Our fantasy team's just going out there shitting the bed. So here we are.
Yeah, and I mean it's great. Oh wow, yeah. So oh man, Jeff's gonna lose because they benched Mac Jones. They really did bench him. Oh man, I have to look at it somewhere because Jeff, who's right now leading the league, or at least was leading the league.
Oh,
he has Mac Jones in the super flex, and
Wilson.
Wilson doesn't even have a second quarterback because Kirk Cousins was off this week, and he did not trust Justin Fields. He also has Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall in one of the flex positions before he ended up tearing his ACL, and Kenneth Walker III for the Seattle Seahawks. So yeah, he has a lot of running back.
Oh man.
And he has Russell Wilson, which doesn't matter. He left Raheem Mostert on the bench, who had 27.9 points. So he has 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs, 6, because he has Gus Edwards. Okay, so I guess he has running backs. And he has Justin Jefferson. I'm assuming Wilson's going to win this league now, the way I look at his team now.
Yeah, he might win, honestly.
He's won it before. Now he's going to get to second. But it's very close amongst, 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. Even Manny's now kind of back in the mix. Vic getting a couple wins in a row now, so he's back in the mix.
Bailey Zapp just threw a dime here to, I don't know, Parker. That's the type of throw you need to make.
I love they spent a first round draft pick on Mac Jones, and now they benched him, and they got some guy from, I don't know where the hell he came from, but oh well. At least to go and check out one thing. I'm going to check my sleeper fantasy team. Vic and I both co-manage, and we're going to win. We've already won, so that's good because Joe Burrow scored 50 points there. We have Jonathan Taylor. He has a bunch of players playing, but he's going to need 30, 40, 47 points from the combination of Jacoby and Myers, Ramondre Stevenson. He has him and Ramondre Stevenson. James Robinson. I was about to drop him, but I can't drop him now because he's on the Jets. And Garrett Wilson. Trevor Lawrence. He seems to always get these rushing touchdowns. The point is, he's a quarterback, and he's not Lamar Jackson, so I don't know why he's
I mean,
getting rushing
he's got
touchdowns.
good rushing ability in the red zone, I
Yeah.
guess, with the zone read and QB sneak and all that. But I mean, he's not a type of quarterback like Lamar that can just spin out of the pocket and take off for 50 yards.
Well, that isn't going to help because Ramondre Stevenson just scored a touchdown. And what is it? Bailey Zappi, 4 for 4, 97 yards and a touchdown. Ramondre Stevenson has a touchdown. They're up 14-10, and that probably is the game because the Chicago Bears suck. All right. So there's your football segment. We moved it out of the back of the show and we moved it to the front of the show. So let's move forward from football. We also had plenty to talk about this week in terms of motorsports. NASCAR ran at Homestead this past weekend, Josh, and a guy who has dominated at Homestead for many years, Kyle Larson, was the winner of the Dixie Vodka 400. Tony was supposed to be the Grand Marshal, but they came up with some cockamamie reason. They're saying that because of his sponsor commitments to Dixie Vodka, which is interesting since if they're the presenting sponsor, I think they would want him to be out there. He's won 3 races at Homestead. He won the first race ever at Homestead in 2000. He won the first 2 races at Homestead. And one of the greatest championships ever ended at Homestead with him winning and tying Carl Edwards, winning on a tiebreaker. I think that's why they wanted him as but NASCAR probably said, no, we don't want him with an open mic. And that was a joke going around on social media.
I mean, Tony might have just said, hey, find a different guy. He could have said that too.
He could have done anything. It's Tony Stewart. I get it. I say that as a Tony Stewart diehard. So, but his team didn't really do a hell of a lot. Hendrick Motorsports did, though. Kyle Larson dominated the show. It's not shocking to me after the qualifying. When he was up front, he qualified fastest in the first round, but didn't put a lap together in the second round. His teammate, pedophile lover Byron, won the pole, former winner at Homestead. But Kyle Larson won both stages, led the most laps, maximum points. He looked like the guy that won 10 races in the championship last year. And it's interesting since his teammates, or at least his one teammate, is scuffling. I mean, this wasn't a great day for the playoff drivers, to be fair, outside of Ross Chastain. Even Denny Hamlin. There's only 3 playoff drivers because they count Kyle Larson with the owner's points, and he's in the championship. He'll be in the championship 4, along with Joey Logano, at Phoenix for the owner's championship. So there is a possibility where Hendrick could win both the drivers and owner's championship with 2 different drivers, because now that's a possibility. It was an interesting day, though, Josh. Outside of Kyle Larson, a lot of stuff went on with these playoff guys. Most of them struggled, finished outside of the top 10. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. 7 or 6 of them outside of the top 10. And but Kyle Larson dominated at a track where he has been very, very good his whole career. He finally got that elusive victory at Homestead.
Yeah, Kyle Larson, over the years, we've seen what he's been able to do at Homestead, and how he's able to run the high line, so close to the wall. And there's been times where he had the race won and something happened, or he just hit the wall too much, and something uh, caused him to not win. So, finally, was able to put it all together and win here at Homestead, and just put on masterclass and of a race. And you saw the first stage ending, over 10 seconds of a lead, and the second stage had a big lead as well at the end of that. So, just a thoroughly dominating performance by Kyle Larson. The third stage, he got a little bit behind, in the mid pack, and had to fend off AJ Allmendinger for a couple spots. Then went up and was able to pass for second against Ross Chastain, and then was able to challenge Martin Truex Jr. for the lead, and then ended up, I guess they accidentally got in together in the pits. Although I think that's I think Truex had begun to miss his pit and then had to suddenly slow down, and then Larson kind of ran into him there. So more of an incidental contact. I don't think nobody's gonna potentially wreck anybody on pit road.
Yeah, kinda. He was all the way through him, and he was checking his temperature anally.
Yeah,
that's how hard he hit him.
Yeah, I mean, especially with these cars and everything, the stiff bumpers. But um, Larson, was able to get it done. So finally gets his Homestead win. And everybody, back when Larson first made the playoffs, they're like, watch out for him. If they get to Homestead because he's going to be good there. And now they moved it to the final race to Phoenix, and they moved Homestead around and everything. And Homestead now in the playoffs. Now finally Kyle Larson goes to track he's really good at and locks himself into the owners' championship, not the drivers' championship. So that happened, of course, and it's going to be an interesting scenario with the split championship, or the possibility at least. And obviously, Kyle Larson's the defending drivers' champion, and I guess defending owners' champion as well for the 5 team. But has a chance to go, essentially defend the owners part of the championship this year, and could very well do that. And we've seen how the top 4 drivers have performed at Phoenix over the years, and expect
we'll add another one now.
Yeah, add a 5th guy or a 4th guy depending on what you're looking at to be in that mix. So it's going to be interesting. I guess a 5-way battle for the owners, or combined 5-way battle for the points championships. I guess now we have to give a duality or a plurality to it. So it's an interesting scenario there.
Yeah, it's something that we see in the trucks and Xfinity more often over the years.
Well, really
but now
just
in the Cup
Xfinity.
Series, yeah, but I mean, definitely, the Gibbs and Roush, Gibbs, Penske, over the years that has happened in Xfinity and the Truck Series with Kyle Busch Motorsports versus the Drivers' Championship. I mean, now that's not really the case with the Final Four because of. I don't think so. I'll have to go and look at that here, but yeah, I mean, I think a couple other points we have to look at. Chase Briscoe ends up hitting the fence early and midway through the race. His car was dog shit, which is no shock. Considering Stuart Haas can't make a good car for anybody that isn't Kevin Harvick. And his crew chief is sitting at home, no less. So now he's in a must-win scenario. Christopher Bell started up front, on the front row, finished 11th, wasn't enough. It's in a do-or-die situation for him, too. Both of those guys go in a Martinsville needing a win. Ryan Blaney is minus 18, which isn't insurmountable. It isn't impossible, but he's probably in a limbo. Denny Hamlin has one at Homestead. He's won at Martinsville many times before. He's a Virginia guy, short track guy. He is somebody who can win in this spot. The points going into next week, of course, Logano's in after finishing 18th, but he still won. He won last week to lock himself in to the Phoenix finale. And Ross Chastain's plus 19. Chase Elliott is plus 11. William Byron has 5 points ahead of Denny Hamlin. So Chase Elliott has not had a great playoff. He got lucky, won Talladega. His playoff has been pretty mediocre. It's proof positive to the regular season format of winning stages and winning races and getting the playoff points, because if it wasn't for all that, you look at how many playoff points he brings to the table here. If he didn't have that, I mean, Chase Elliott would be in deep trouble. He has 46 playoff points, and the current situation is he is plus the 20, 13, 24. He's plus 24, or not even plus 24. I mean, he's plus 11 over Denny Hamlin, who had only 13 playoff points. So that's 33. Yeah. He has 11 on Denny Hamlin, and he's plus 33 over the regular season. So it kind of gives credence to actually performing well in the regular season, especially in a year as crazy as this year has been, where being able to go and have those points, he needed them because he has not performed well during this playoff at all. I mean, Clyde only finished 14th yesterday. You're going into, just in general, he has not been great. Vegas was one of his worst performances he's had all year, and they've already put it out there. It's one of his worst racetracks. He had issues at Texas. You're talking about the round of 16. He had issues the whole entire round of 16, where 3 non-playoff drivers won. He had issues at Texas, where another non-playoff driver won, backdoored the win at Talladega. Had issues at the Roval. Issues. And he might still, and here's the reality, he still could go out there in Martinsville. We'll talk about that later in the preview, and win. Might win the next 2 races. He's done it before. That's how he won his championship a couple of years ago. But what's to say that he's running well enough to do that? We're not seeing that. William Byron, whatever. I don't think he really belongs. He's done enough, but this Martinsville race, considering how bad it's probably going to be, with how cold it's going to be and lack of passing, the strategy and who makes the right calls is really going to play a role. Track position is going to be key. There might be a lot of destruction, and that's entirely possible. It might be a demo derby, because the Truck Series isn't there and ARC ain't there, so they need a demo derby. I feel like there might be 2 demo derbies this weekend, both in Xfinity and Cup, but that's the only way things are going to change. Hendrick is in a position where they can possibly win both titles, and make something happen. I guess the Bears scored a touchdown. Yeah. So, I mean, I was talking about how we talked about the points, so I brought that up. The one thing I wanted to bring up before we move on or a couple things I want to bring up before we move on. I mean, 2311 having two fill-in drivers, they both qualified really well, but kind of proves a point to some people that maybe the guys that they have running for them regularly aren't so bad. Of course, Kurt Busch is not going to be racing a car anytime soon, at least not this year. And Darrell Wallace Jr. was sitting at home due to his suspension. So the narrative about how bad it went for Kyle Larson, it fit for those people going and winning at Homestead. But his car was fast, but it ended up in the fence. And John Hunter Nemechek, all respect to him and his ability, wasn't able to bring that thing home in a decent position, just like Ty Gibbs has not been able to bring the 45 car home in a decent position for, I don't know how many weeks. It's been a long time since Ty Gibbs actually looked decent in that car, and it's convenient and a convenient narrative knowing that he's going to be taking over Kyle Busch's car, the car that has been driven by Bobby Labonte, NASCAR Hall of Famer, and Kyle Busch, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer too. The flagship car of Joe Gibbs Racing. And Ty Gibbs is basically having the same kind of deal as Austin Dillon. I mean, it may be unfair to go and put him in the same boat as Austin Dillon, but nepotism is the reason why Ty Gibbs never drove a truck for Kyle Busch Motorsports. It's a reason why he's going to end up taking over Kyle Busch's ride, and they justified it based on sponsorship and money and whatever. Kyle Busch was put Joe Gibbs to another level. I mean, Tony Stewart and Bobby Labonte, Tony Stewart put them to a level, and then Kyle Busch going there while Toyota came in put them into another level. And I'm not a Kyle Busch guy, but you don't get rid of people like that. You know that, and you're getting rid of him for Ty Gibbs. And you know Martin Truex is leaving, and Denny Hamlin has got a team, and he's got investment in the sport. So what's stopping him from going and telling FedEx, hey, I want to go and drive for my own team? What the hell's going to happen to Joe Gibbs Racing? So Darrell Wallace Jr. was sitting at home, and that team didn't really do much anything. But AJ Allmendinger, that's the one thing I want to ask you, Josh. AJ Allmendinger, in the Xfinity series, it's kind of tight for him to possibly, which we're going to get to in a minute. But he is on 6 consecutive top 10 finishes in the Cup Series in the race. 6 consecutive top 10 finishes. And he is going to be driving full-time next year. We've mentioned it on this show that if he was in that car all year, they would have made the playoffs. And this is proof positive. He had a chance to win this race. He got in a race with Ross Chastain, a former teammate of his, late. Couldn't clear him. He kind of probably laid over for Chastain, knowing that Chastain's in the final 8. But AJ Allmendinger, man, that's crazy. To be a part-timer in the Cup Series this year and doing what he has done with the Kaulig Racing team. It kind of goes and shows what this next-gen car has brought to the table. It also shows AJ Allmendinger, I think, is ready for a champion, at least to be able to get into the playoffs next year.
Yeah, definitely. I think they showed a lot of speed this weekend at Homestead, and Allmendinger is up front challenging for top 5, and it showed a lot of speed this weekend, and he could have been a dark horse contender for the win. Had things played out in their favor, but he's finished, like you said, 6 top 10s in a row. But I think you also have to preface that by saying that 3 of those were at road courses, the Indianapolis GP, Watkins Glen, and then the Charlotte Roval. But those other tracks are Homestead, Las Vegas, and Bristol. So he's been able to be pretty diverse in where he's gotten his top 5s and top 10s at this season. So the last 6 races, or his last 6 starts here in the Cup Series. So the 16 car they've run up front, um, when they've, or at least ran contending for top tens where they can this season, and possibly could have done a whole lot better if Allmendinger was the guy the whole year, the whole way. But uh, we'll find out next year, what he looks like as a full time driver once again. But a really good job the last 6 starts for Allmendinger, I think. Um, I think colleague. They had a lot of good runs this year. Justin Haley has been running well as of late. Surprisingly, they haven't really done a whole lot with him this year, but it seems like maybe the last couple of weeks he started to put it together and make a little bit of noise. But he could be a dark horse candidate next year as well, along with Allmendinger, to possibly make the playoffs. If he's able to close in a win, or just um, improve on finishing in the top 10 more often, and maybe be a guy that could possibly be one of those wild cards, I guess, that doesn't make the playoffs but finishes like within that 17th place to 20th place in the point standings next year. That could be the type of season for him. But I go back to the 45 car real quick. With Bubba Wallace obviously out of the car this week, but John Hunter Nemechek did qualify pretty good this weekend, and he qualified.
Qualifying the top 10, he was
Yeah,
faster in practice.
yeah, he was fast in practice, qualified in fourth, and he was running in the top 10 for a good amount of the race. But then he spun out off of turn 2, and fell a lap down after that and couldn't make it back up. So yeah, I mean, still shows that the 45 has a lot of speed no matter who you put in it. I think and I think John Hunter Nemechek, in his chance to be in the Cup Series, he had a lot of opportunity in 2020, but now this is a first real opportunity in a good ride, and he definitely was impressive for what he's able to do up until his spin. Ran pretty well, I think, considering the circumstances and everything. So good good for that team, I guess. And I think other teams you want to talk about, the 6 car, I think we didn't even bring up Brad, but Brad finished in
I didn't
5th.
even go through the results,
Yeah,
and Brad had his first top 5 of the year.
yeah. So first top 5 of the year for Brad Keselowski. Austin Dillon came from 32nd to 4th in this race. So he's hasn't been that well, even though he made the playoffs and everything. Hasn't really finished all that well this season, and he goes and gets a top 5. Brad, of course, had good speed throughout the race, and managed to bring it home in top 5. And Chris Buescher in 13th. So pretty decent weekend for the Roush cars as well. Maybe a preview for next year potentially. If the 6 car, especially, I think we'll see Christopher Buescher in the playoffs next year. I think he can get in. He's shown that he's got the ability to do it. But I think Brad next year, I think we're gonna see a lot more of him running a lot more competitively than what he did this year. So this is definitely a race that had a lot of ups and downs. Even though like from a, I guess, a caution standpoint, there wasn't really a whole lot that happened other than the 45, the 12, and then the 8 car all had accidents or spins, and the 14 also had damage that took him out of the race. But for volatility and strategy, it's still, this car, especially on mile and a half, shows that it has the ability to produce a lot of variance in the results.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. I mean, it wasn't the most exciting race, but there's more variability here with Xfinity, or I mean, with the Cup Series, uh, with this new car. I'll just get into the results before we move on to Xfinity, which was also basically a runaway. Larson, Chastain, Allmendinger, Dillon, Brad Keselowski, your top 5. Martin Truex was leading before that final pit stop got moved because he missed his pit stall, whatever. Larson got into him, whatever. Finished 6th, came all the way back. Hamlin 7th, which could be key. Honestly, he passed Denny Hamlin and didn't lay over there, and which we're going to get into in terms of teammates and helping each other. That 1 point could be key. Denny Hamlin 7th, Kevin Harvick 8th, Kyle Busch 9th, Daniel Suarez 10th, Christopher Bell, William Byron 11th and 12th. Christopher Buescher, he's going back to Chris, but I think a lot of us are just going to start calling him Christopher because of Dale Jr. 13th, Chase Elliott, William Clyde Elliott the second, 14th. Ryan Blaney 17th, Joey Logano 18th. John Hunter started 4th, finished 27th, a lap down. Haley ran better earlier, and this is worst finish he's had in a while. Finished 28th. And Eric Jones had a rough day. Tyler Reddick wrecked late, hit a opening in the wall, or hit a place where there was an opening, and destroyed the front end of his Chevy while he was running in the top 10. Chase Briscoe finished dead last. So he's going to need a win. Christopher Bell's going to need a win. And it's kind of borderline whether Ryan Blaney, he might need a win as well. Xfinity Series race at Homestead. It was Noah Gragson. 8th win of the season for him. Contender Boats 300 winner. So now 2 junior motorsports drivers are locked into the championship. He has more playoff points than anybody. Right now, his the point, you have to go to the point. So right now he's in. Josh Berry's in. Ty Gibbs is plus 30 over the cut. AJ Allmendinger is plus 5 over Justin Allgaier. There's a possibility where, it's entirely possible where it could be an all junior motorsports Final Four. If, say, Sam Mayer goes and wins his first career race and Justin Allgaier outscores AJ Allmendinger, it could be an all junior motorsports Final Four at Phoenix, which would be interesting for Dale Jr. to handle as a announcer. But in terms of what things are going, I mean, Ty Gibbs, it would need to be pretty crazy for Ty Gibbs to fall out of this playoff. But hey, Chris, stranger things have happened. He's plus 30, AJ Allmendinger plus 5. Overall, Allgaier, Austin Hill is minus 7 off the cut line, which is AJ Allmendinger. Mayer and Jones need to win. Jones, of course, won at Martinsville. I keep on saying Homestead. At Martinsville earlier this year. But in terms of Gragson, he won both stages. Led 127 laps, maximizes points. Second most laps led was Trevor Bayne with 46, who qualified on pole. Austin Hill was third most laps led, finished 9th. A lot of the playoff guys were right in the mix in the top 11. The only, Josh Berry finished 11th. Brandon Jones finished 15th. Otherwise, every person that's still got some sort of playoff involvement finished in the top 10. Gragson, Gibbs, Allmendinger, Hemrick, Mayer, the top 5. Bayne, Chandler Smith driving the Sam Hunt 26, finished 7th. Riley Herbst was involved in an early wreck, came back for 8th. Austin Hill, Justin Allgaier. Gragson, 8th win. I mean, honestly, he's a favorite to win this championship. If Gibbs goes out there and wins at Martinsville, I guess it'll be between those two guys, and hopefully they destroy each other, and then it'll be a much more interesting battle, and maybe Josh Berry and Justin Allgaier can battle for it. But Gragson gets another win there at Homestead at a track that's kind of owed him one too. He's been in a championship 4 in the Truck Series there. He's given away races there in the Xfinity Series, but he did what he had to do on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Noah Gragson goes out and wins, and locks himself into the championship 4, and I mean, think for everybody else, I mean, that was pretty obvious. I think that he, or well, I mean, not obvious, but I mean, it was a good chance that he would win. He's been successful there in the past, but hadn't closed the deal, kind of like Larson in a way. But Noah Gragson goes out and wins that one. I think for the rest of the playoff field, there's still a possibility of AJ Allmendinger not making it into the playoffs, but or into the championship 4. But it's gonna be a tough deal, especially this weekend at Martinsville. Um, Allmendinger has been pretty good there too, but Justin Allgaier has also been pretty good at Martinsville as well over the years since they've brought in this format. And gotta say it, I think for the 7, he's going to have to go out and win the race, I think, to make it in. I think AJ can win as well, but I think it's going to be a lot harder for the 7 to make it in than the 16. I think Ty Gibbs could also have an opportunity. He was good at this track back in the spring, back in April, but at the same time, he doesn't really need to win. Just needs to take what he can get and finish the race. But I think. It's a lot harder to see him follow the playoffs also because obviously he's got 30 points to the cut line, and would take major catastrophic failure, I think, for him to fall out of it. Think the rest of the field, Austin Hill, Sam Mayer, I think he was also done well at Martinsville, but at the same time, it's a lot harder for him to get in, and they'd have to take more shots. So I think it's likely that this is going to be your championship 4 with the 954, 16, and then the 8 car to decide it in Phoenix. But as far as Homestead goes, and Gregson, put on a clinic as well, and had a final restart there at the end of the race. Very close racing with 5 laps to go. That kind of gave a chance for everybody else to kind of get back into it. Gibbs and Allmendinger both could have had chances, I guess, to win, but they just didn't have the pace that Ty Gibbs or that Noah Gragson did. So this race, not a whole lot happened, but I think the best team at the end of the day won. And now we're going to see Gragson have an opportunity to go win the championship here in Phoenix, and he's already won there in the past, obviously back in April or in March. So there's a possibility that we see Noah Gragson win the championship this year, and it's going to be hard to bet against him, I think. Especially with how the way he's been this year with Junior Motorsports, but we'll have to see what happens. Next week at Martinsville, obviously you still want to keep the momentum up and not lose any of it, even if you're already locked in. So we'll see what happens this weekend at Martinsville, and once we get the field locked in and ready for Phoenix in the following week after.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I figure, like you said, that Allgaier has to win, and you think Allmendinger is gonna make it. I feel like it's the other way around. I feel like Allmendinger has to win, and that Allgaier is gonna make it in. So it's gonna be interesting. There's actually gonna be racing in that Xfinity race. There'll be a lot of carnage, but there's gonna be a lot of racing in that race. Gibbs is really good there, and it gives the advantage to Ty Gibbs. I kind of have this feeling that Ty Gibbs is going to go and run one out, and unless like Noah Gragson runs through him to eliminate him from the playoffs, because that's his biggest competitor, I think Ty Gibbs goes and wins there, but we'll talk about that later. I guess I've already made my pick for who I think is going to win the race on Saturday, but Truck Series race, there was a bit of controversy, Josh. in the Contender Boats 200 in the Truck Series, or Baptist Health 200, or Contender Boats 300 was the Xfinity race. My fault. I'm mixing up my sponsors. I'm not even that drunk. Jesus. Ty Majeski gets his second win of this round. Baptist Health 200 winner. And and he goes and gives himself a chance to win his first Truck Series championship. There was a tweet earlier today about the guys who drove that 60 car in the Xfinity Series a few years ago when they wrecked every single week. There's a chance that Ty Majeski could be a Truck Series champion in a few weeks' time. Austin Cindric is an Xfinity champion, almost a two-time Xfinity champion, going to be the Cup Series Rookie of the Year after winning the Daytona 500. Chase Briscoe won 9 races in the Xfinity Series a couple, 2 years ago. Won Rookie of the Year last year, is going to finish somewhere decent points-wise, whether he makes the Final Four or not. As there's Diwali fireworks going off around me here. But the fireworks were at the race there wasn't a whole lot of action, honestly. 3 people led. I mean, it was a very boring race. It's funny. They talk about how great the racing is at Homestead, but to be fair, if you hit the setup at Homestead, just like most 1.5 mile racetracks, you're going to get away. And when you don't have horsepower, or you just have a car that's that much better, a truck, you're not going to be able to fight it off. Majeski started from 18th. Didn't win either stage, but is in the top 5 of both stages. Zane Smith won the second stage. Ben Rhodes won the first stage, starting in second. Ryan Preece started on pole. He's somebody that there's a lot of intrigue about. But yeah, Majeski, Zane Smith, Stuart Friesen, Ryan Preece, Corey Heim, your top 5. Ben Rhodes, Christian Eckes, Matt Crafton, Parker Kligerman, Chandler Smith, your top 10. Enfinger, 14th. John Hunter Nemechek made a mistake at the fence, finished 35th. And what likely will be his next to last Truck Series race before getting a call to drive in Xfinity. Now, whether he's driving a Gibbs car next year or driving the 26 full time, that's to be determined. But Toyota reiterated their support for JHN. His Truck Series performance this year has been underwhelming, going and basically choking away an opportunity to win a championship this year. But Chandler Smith, along with Zane Smith, Ty Majeski, and Ben Rhodes, so 3 Toyotas and a Ford, will be in the Final Four at Phoenix, Josh. But I think the bigger story is what happened with Ty Majeski's teammate, Ben Rhodes, the former series champion, defending series champion, actually, getting help from his teammates Christian Eckes and Matt Crafton late in the race when he had lost a handle and wasn't running as well. And there was rumors or thoughts of race manipulation, which when you look at what happened to Stuart Haas and they threw the book at SHR for that a few weeks ago, I'm curious what we're going to see in regards to that now that we've determined the Final Four. They're not going to go and change the Final Four, I don't think. But there's a strong possibility that ThorSport played the team game and laid back to help Ben Rhodes make the Final Four over Stuball, who, at the end of the day, karma has to catch up to that cocksucker eventually. And this is maybe one example of that. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you could have ran Lane Riggs. Lane Riggs has driven better with your equipment than he has, with his equipment than he has. And that's one of his better runs of the year. If you put Lane Riggs in that thing, it could have been been like Brendan Gaughan when he got run over by Marty Houston. You could have had that happen. Then all of a sudden you'd have been in the Final Four. Why didn't you go and run an extra truck? If you're being mad about it now, you know that it was a possibility beforehand. You could have had Lane Riggs, you could have had Todd Bodine, but Todd Bodine's fat and old and not that competitive. But what are your thoughts on that specifically, and also to Ty Majeski, proving once again what kind of driver he has been, especially in the super late model category, but now one race away possibly from being a Truck Series champion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's anytime you have a team try to manipulate the race in some way, or just give a favorable situation to one of their drivers, is always going to be a lot of controversy, and maybe Ben Rhodes, he benefited from that situation, and was able to make it into the final four. But at the same time, uh, at the same time, you don't really want to see that type of thing. And I guess maybe the contrast to that, with the Cup Series incident with Cole Custer is, at least Custer, I guess there was a greater difference in speed when Custer did it versus what you saw there. And you could argue that the Thor Sport trucks were going 100% to their ability at that time, maybe. But if you want to use the 100% rule in NASCAR, but maybe they're really going 80%, but they made it look like they're going 100% for what they were able to do. I mean, there's ways to make it look like you're not manipulating anything, but it certainly does look questionable, for sure, especially in it. Not only is it just to make the playoffs, but it's also to make the final round. And you have to also consider, could this happen again in a couple weeks here at Phoenix? Could we see some type of situation like that where it doesn't have to be at the end of the race, but maybe there's a key situation where, driver, let's just say Ben Rhodes falls or is about to fall a lap down, and conveniently, one of his teammates decides to hit the wall or something and cause a caution. Is that considered race manipulation? Something like that. So just giving different scenarios here for what could happen, but um, you know I guess they got away with it, and NASCAR did not feel the need, or hasn't felt the need yet, to deliver any punishment of anything. So we'll see if that happens. But this, yeah, nothing really happened in this race. But I guess, yeah, the final four set, and Ty Majeski, he's been around for a couple years now, and in the late models, was in the 60 car a couple years ago with Cindric and Briscoe. And now, yeah, it's funny, now all three of those guys are going to have a chance to fight for a championship. Of course, Cindric won the championship in Xfinity in 2020. Briscoe was part of that championship fight in 2020. Now Majeski is going to have his chance to get a title in NASCAR in the Big Three series here at Phoenix in the trucks. So there's at the end of the day, those three drivers have all had they've all had opportunities to win championships, and they possibly are, all three of them are championship material drivers. And for Majeski, until this year, he wasn't really sure how well he was actually doing in NASCAR in the truck series, and felt like maybe he hadn't made the progress they had made in relative experience to his teammates in that 60 car. So this year, big turnaround, and finally getting that first win in the playoffs, and then now getting his second career win here at Homestead, and then now having the possibility to go out as a championship. That's pretty exciting for that team, and it definitely shows the improvements that he's made. In his Cup Series career, or, well, not Cup Series, well, eventually it could be Cup Series, but in his Truck Series career here. So interesting to see what will happen as the Truck Series goes to Phoenix, and we decide who's the championship, who's going to win the championship here in this series.
Yeah, and when you look at the Final Four, you have Chandler Smith, who's going to go to Chevy, go to Colleague next year, taking over AJ Allmendinger in the 16 Xfinity car. and you have Zane Smith, who is essentially Ford's only prospect at the moment, and they're going to try to keep him in the fold at Front Row Motorsports. He's going to run trucks. He's going to also run limited Xfinity races. There might be other people involved in that whole deal, based on the whole Ryan Preece, Cole Custer deal. He's going to run the Daytona 500, or at least attempt to make the Daytona 500, probably run limited cup races. My feeling is he's going to end up taking over the 34 ride at the end of, for 2024. Michael McDowell without Blake Harris is going to go back to being Michael McDowell. Blake Harris is one of the best people in the garage, and he's grown from being, coming from the bottom to now he's going to be crew chiefing the 48 car next year. So we're going to finally see if Alex Bowman has it, because Blake Harris is a really good, chassis guy, suspension guy, engineer, helped Martin Truex at his best. And now we'll see what happens with that. But I think for Thor Sport to have two of the four drivers in the final four after the way this season has been is pretty crazy. To get all four into the drivers playoffs is really good. I mean, DGR and Kyle Busch got their trucks that were their star trucks into the playoffs, which knocked out Matt Crafton, and Grant Enfinger. But the reality of the world is Enfinger came through. He won one race. Crafton had a rough year. There's a lot of things they're going to have to go over. Essentially, three of those trucks, I think, are already spoken for next year. I would assume no matter what happens, Majeski is going to be back next year. He is an employee of ThorSport Racing. He was working in the shop before he got to drive. And Ben Rhodes, defending series champion, he's been in the truck series for a while. I doubt they're going to get rid of him because he gets money. Crafton, the Menard family, and him have great relationships, so I figure, and the Thorson, so I figure he ain't going away anytime soon until he decides to. Trying to take over for a two-time series champion is going to be tough for a guy who's driven for that organization for better part of 20 years too. The question probably would be with the 98 truck with Christian Eckes because of the funding and all that, but that's something that's for the off season. We probably won't know for sure until next year, sometime late January, when how all that comes off. I mean, the truck series is gonna be a lot different next year, in the sense that I think for GMS, they're probably gonna have Daniel Dye in one of their trucks next year instead of that loser who wrecked every week, who was Jack Wood, and he sucks. Maybe Jack Wood goes to Kyle Busch Motorsports with the money he brings to the table. Chase Purdy already is out. I think Tanner Gray is probably going back to NHRA personally. Corey Haim's going to be in the truck series next year full time, and he's won twice. Ankrum, whatever. Hocevar's got a lot of heat because blocking moron Brett Griffin hates him. So I wonder what's going to happen with Nice now that Chevy has Kyle Busch and GMS. Nice would end up becoming the third team there. Would they go and make a deal with Ford? Would they make a deal with Toyota now that DGR is their lead team? Something to look at. But we'll get into truck series here in a couple weeks. what happens with that with the championship, since the drivers and owners championship is the same in the truck series leading up to Phoenix. The U.S. Grand Prix saw Max Verstappen become tie Michael Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel with 13 wins in the season. Schumacher did in 18 races, Vettel did in 19 races, so did Max Verstappen. He had a bad pit stop. His second pit stop wasn't so good, but his car is a rocket ship because they cheat, and he was able to go and pass Lewis Hamilton with 5 laps to go and gap Lewis Hamilton by the end and win by over 5 seconds. He won by just over 5 seconds, 5.023 seconds at the end because Lewis Hamilton's rear tires were shot. Charles Leclerc finished third. He had a grid penalty. Sergio Perez had a grid penalty, but he came up to fourth. And George Russell rounded out the top 5. Lando Norris was 6th, Sebastian Vettel 7th in a great battle with Kevin Magnussen, Yuki Tsunoda 8th, Esteban Ocon 9th, Kevin Magnussen 8th, Yuki Tsunoda 9th, Esteban Ocon 10th. Fernando Alonso finished 7th on the road and got penalized 30 seconds because of damage, because of a protest by Haas regarding the damage he suffered after almost having an airplane crash on the back straightaway and hitting an opening in the guardrail, going over his future teammate Lance Stroll's right or left rear corner because Lance Stroll made a terrible decision to block. He had debris coming off his car. Mirror fell off. They didn't say anything. Red Bull, Sergio Perez had a winglet coming off of his car. They didn't do anything to him. But Kevin Magnussen, in at least 3 occasions, has had to pit for the whatever, I think they called that the meatball flag, the orange circle on the black background, because of unsafe driving around with unsafe parts flying around, while you got a Red Bull doing that and an Alpine, and they didn't make the same call. So Gunther Steiner and company put in that protest, which led to the 30-second penalty for Fred Alonso. But Verstappen wins. Had to face a little bit of adversity in that race, and had issues after he pitted there. So, 30, what is it? I don't know what that. I'm trying to see. Said time. Yeah, so his first pit stop was 23 total from in to out. Was 23.86 seconds. His second pit stop, because of the issues they had, was 32.254. So 9 seconds slower. But in the end, the guy, credibility-wise, in regards to how legitimate his championships are, they have the best car. He's been the best driver this year. Outside of one race for Sergio Perez, he's won every race since, I think, since the since the British Grand Prix, and he's going to do this for a while, Josh. And if you like him, God bless you. He's a he's a cocksucker, but he's a really good race car driver, and his team's full of cocksuckers. But in a weekend where Dietrich Mateschitz, whatever, passed away, the guy who made Red Bull and got him into motorsport, it's kind of poetic that he goes and wins this race coming back. They win the Constructors' Championship for the first time in 9 years. A lot of things went into it, but Max Verstappen and that car are at a different level right now.
Yeah, they're at a different level, and at least Verstappen had the race for it this time. It wasn't completely a clinic, like what he has had last couple of races, but he had to go through uh, Lewis Hamilton the closing laps to be able to win this race, and Lewis put up a fight for a couple of laps, but then Verstappen just had better pace, better tires, and was able to pull out the victory there. So, nothing really Lewis could do about it other than to be able to try and defend his position, and he was able to do as much as he could, and Verstappen still ended up winning the race. But Verstappen had a slow pit stop and left front wheel gun. Gave up 11.1 seconds, and then lost the lead to Leclerc, and lost behind Hamilton. 7 seconds behind Hamilton, but at least Hamilton had a bit of a window to operate with. Leclerc and Verstappen both battling for position for a bit, bought Lewis some time, but at the end of the day, Verstappen just had better pace overall, and he's able to get up to Hamilton on 3 or 4 laps to go and pass him for the win. So that's how that game ended, or how that race ended. Of course, the other thing about that is the big incident with Alonso and with Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll tried to block Alonso. Alonso had the opportunity to pass at the long straight, but he gets pirouetted into the air, kind of like Marcus Ericsson at Nashville, and still somehow manages to finish 7th before the penalties, so before the 30-second penalty that he had. So incredible body work by Alpine, and shows how tough, I guess, this car is in certain situations, and also Alonso incredible skill to keep the car from getting any more damage after he took off in the air. But then on the other end of it, Lance Stroll, just not a good decision, that he made there, and definitely probably, deserves some criticism for that type of move. And Stewart's gonna have to investigate that move if they haven't already. So, yeah, 2 safety cars in this race also, with Valtteri Bottas getting stuck in the gravel in turn 6. So rare 2 safety cars, I feel like, in Formula One, but one could have been preventable at the very least. And this was a pretty interesting U.S. Grand Prix for sure. At least Verstappen had to work for it this time. But would have liked to have seen Hamilton pull out the upset victory, and would have been the first victory of the year for Mercedes. But then on the other end of it, Red Bull gets their first constructors in 11 or 9 years. So it's been a long time coming since they last did it, but now they have an opportunity to go defend that title next year, and we'll see if they're able to do that. Of course, now teams, when they learned of the cost cap issue with Red Bull, now teams are going to probably try to exploit that. Mercedes seems like maybe they might they might be a team to look at trying to push the envelope when it comes to taking advantage of the cost cap. So maybe this title run here is short lived for Red Bull, but at the end of the day, they are the constructor and the drivers' championship for this season. And we'll see. We'll see what they do next year. Um, other people that want to talk about here. Um, of course, Charles Leclerc got another podium. Perez could have had a chance, but this time Leclerc, unlike at Suzuka, he was able to hold off Perez there at the end, and get a third place from P12. Russell finishing fifth. Lando Norris, and clearly the number one driver at McLaren this time, finishing in sixth place, and their deficit to Alpine's down to 12 points, although that probably changes now that Alonso is penalized. And you also have to look at some of the other guys. Esteban 11th, so I think now that Alonso's been penalized to P15 now, Esteban moves one spot ahead, so there's going to be a little bit of difference there for McLaren to get their deficit to Alpine in the points for the constructors standings. So that's going to be a storyline to keep in mind. Of course, talk about Sebastian Vettel coming back from 13th, finishing in 8th, and good last lap there for him.
He had a great run, and
Yeah.
he was running 6th on merit, and they fucked up their last pit stop, and he had to come from outside of the points to get back in. That battle with Kevin Magnussen,
Yeah, it was a good battle.
was absolutely one of the best things I've seen all year in Formula One. There hasn't been a whole lot to watch in Formula One this year, and definitely since July, there hasn't been a whole lot to watch in Formula One. But Sebastian Vettel proves once again why he's one of the greatest drivers ever in this sport, and why we're going to miss him in this sport. They planted, what is it, 200? They're going to end up planting, I think, 299 trees at Coda for all of his starts that he's had in Formula One. They did a ceremony for that. He had a great run. They had a great car. Aston Martin, I talked about this on Grid Talk earlier today when we did the preview for Mexico, that his energy and his momentum leaving has been a big part, I think, of why they've made this big step forward, because they were garbage the start of the year. And I think how bad they were was part of why Vettel said, I'm not going to keep on doing this. I don't agree with a lot of things that Formula One's about. I don't agree with a lot of things, how things are. And I have what I want to do. I want to be with my wife and my kids. And I've won 53 races. I'm one of the greatest drivers ever. I won 4 consecutive championships. I'm going to end up being, I won more races than anybody, or I'm tied with my mentor and a hero for 13 wins in a season. He was the last guy to win Red Bull a championship and the drivers and be a part of a constructors championship. So you look at the contrast between him and Max Verstappen, and you can see that Sebastian Vettel was an ultimate competitor and he hated losing. But the difference was there's class and there's awareness and there's a aspect of being humble that as the years have gone on, we get to see. And will that happen with Max Verstappen? I doubt it. I don't think he's that good of a person. I don't think he'll ever be, mainly because his dad's a cocksucker and he's being coddled by people that are also not great people. But that was definitely a great battle. The Mercedes is not a great car. Lewis did everything in his power to try to hold him off, and he couldn't hold him off because he was losing 2 to 7/10 a lap, maybe 8, 9, like a second a lap to the Red Bull. The Red Bull's in a different time zone. That's why they should penalize them to the fullest extent of the law, because they've been able to gain advantages in 21, 22, and 23 with whatever they've been doing. And if they don't do that, then not only will Mercedes, Ferrari, and every other team that is within their power go and break the cost cap. I mean, the notion is there's no point of a cost cap at that point. And then Mercedes will basically remake their car, and it'll be a 3-horse race again. McLaren has a lot of money. Alpine has a lot of money. Will they be able to compete at the Red Bull level? To be determined, but they need to do something about it. I get it because of the Matishit's passing, that they held off on it. They're going to make a determination. They're going to give a money fine to Aston Martin for the procedural paperwork breach. But that's something that we have to look at for sure as we go on. Leclerc is only 2 points ahead of Sergio Perez in the Drivers' Championship. Russell has fallen way back. Russell and Sainz are only separated by 16 points. Hamilton is 20 points behind Russell. So there is a possibility where Lewis Hamilton could get not only inside the top 5, but finish 4th in the Drivers' Championship with 3 races to go, which when you consider he's a 7-time, he's a 7.5-time world champion for sure. Doesn't mean much, but Verstappen's going to get to 400 points pretty easily, which is crazy. Back in the day, you would have never thought 400 points was a thing, but yeah. It's screwing up all the record books with all these people scoring all these points. But yeah, that's the drivers' standings. In regards to constructors, Ferrari is 53 points ahead of Mercedes with 3 races to go. So more than likely the top 3 is set. Alpine is 6 points ahead of McLaren for 4th. Alfa Romeo is only 1 point ahead of Aston Martin. And then Haas is only 2 points ahead of AlphaTauri. So there's plenty of intrigue in the Constructors' Championship, Drivers' Championship. You look past, it's basically kind of set. I mean, the top 10 looks pretty solid. I think Vettel wants to finish in the top 10. He's only 8 points behind Valtteri Bottas, so that's something to look at. I think the top 9 are basically in without a problem. So that's where the real intrigue is from 10th on to see who's going to finish 10th in the drivers. I mean, Nicholas Latifi has the same amount of points scored as Nick DeVries, who's going to be on the grid next year, while Latifi may come to IndyCar. Valtteri Bottas also brought up how he may end up eventually one day go and run IndyCar. So that's something to see how that all works out. But what's it called here? Yeah. So that's Formula One. We will be previewing the Mexico Grand Prix of Mexico here shortly. But let's get through here. Go and do that. We'll do the roundup, GSP roundup, coming up. First with the MotoGP Malaysian Grand Prix. Pecco Bagnaia winning in a last lap drafting duel with Enea Bastianini, his future teammate, I believe. Right? Yeah, he's going to be his teammate next year, so that's going to be spicy. And Fabio Quartararo finishes third, 2.77 seconds behind. Marco Bezzecchi fourth, Alex Rins fifth, Jack Miller, Mark Marquez, Brad Binder, Johan Zarco, Alicia Spargaro, the top 10. The final race will be at Valencia in a couple weeks' time, and Pecco Bagnaia is 23 points ahead of Fabio Quartararo, the defending world champion. The run recently where going all the way back to the I think the French Grand Prix, where Pecco Bagnaia started a run of 4 consecutive wins and then a second place finish, was where the tide turned. That was after Fabio Quartararo had won 2 races in a row and finished a second in 2 races in a row won. That's where the tide turned. Quartararo getting a second somewhere in there. I'm trying to figure out. I don't know all the flags. Whatever. I know a lot of things. I don't know all the national flags, but whatever. At the same time, Quartararo started having non-point scores. He had 3 non-point scores. At the same time, Bagnaia only had 1. And then otherwise, each one of those rounds that he did finish was on the podium. So Pecco Bagnaia, trying to be the first world champion since Casey Stoner for Ducati, has to only score. At the end of the day, even if Pecco or Fabio Quartararo gets the win, it'll be 55, and Pecco Bagnaia only has to finish 13th. As long as he finishes 13th, I'm trying to see what the point score is. He only needs to score 2 points. So I'm trying to see what the heck 2 points is. He has to finish 14th. He has to finish 14th. If he finishes 13th or better at Valencia, he will be the MotoGP world champion. If he finishes 14th, it'll be a tie if Fabio Quartararo wins. And then it would go down to how many wins each person has, which Quartararo only has 3. And Pecco Bagnaia has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the tiebreaker. So as long as he finishes 14th or better, Pecco Bagnaia will be the MotoGP world champion. We'll talk about that a couple weeks' time on the GSP. Ducati's won the team's title and the constructors' title, so they're trying to go and do the trifecta with Bagnaia. Bastianini is only 1 point behind Alicia Spargaro for third in the world championship. The soon-to-be teammate of Pecco Bagnaia, Jack Miller, is in 5th. He's in good spot there. Binder and Zarco only separated by 2 points. Alex Rins in 8th. Oliveira, 2 points out of Jorge Martin, 9th and 10th there. So we will see what happens with the MotoGP championship. In Moto2, in this past weekend, we saw the results there for at Malaysia, Tony Arbolino getting the victory over Alonso Lopez, Jake Dixon rounding out the podium, Augusto Fernandez and Manuel Gonzalez round out the top five, Marcel Schroeder, Cameron Bobier, Aaron Canet, Jeremy Alcoba, and Fermin Aldeguer round out the top 10. And in the point standings, Augusto Fernandez is up by, 9.5 points? I don't know why. Oh, because the Buria, the round in, yeah, that's why. Okay. They gave out half points. Tony Arbolino has won 2 of the last 3 rounds. So he's made a run a little bit. I mean, he's going to end up finishing 4th in the world champion in the Moto2 championship. Ayagura, 252, so he's 9.5 points behind Augusto Fernandez. So that's still, I mean, he's not neither. I mean, Augusto Fernandez is moving up. Ayagura could still win the championship. He's only won twice, it looks like. Yeah, he's only won twice so far this year, while Augusto Fernandez has won 4 times, and he's had a bunch of podiums. So it's something to see. There's a little bit of intrigue there going into Valencia. Joe Roberts had to retire with mechanical issues in this race, so he's still in 9th in points. Somakat Chantra, who won earlier this year, had to retire due to an accident and injury at Malaysia. So the Thailand round was a half points round. So the Thailand rider, he has 2 points behind Joe Roberts there. Cameron Bobier, 6 points behind Albert Arenas. Trying to go and see if he can move up a little bit more in this championship. He's 10 points behind Jorge Navarro in 12th. I think that's about as far as he could kind of get there. And in terms of the teams, championship, Ajo Motorsport more than likely has won. Trying to see who rides for them. That's Moto3. Yeah, they have Augusto Fernandez and Pedro Acosta, so they're the Red Bull KTM team. Yeah, the Red Bull KTM team, yeah, so there are 33.5 points up. And when you look at riders, like if you finish, so yeah, if you maximum of 45 points you can get in a given round. So they're 33.5 points up. So as long as they're able to score 12 points in some way, shape, or form, they'll be able to get the team's championship. And in constructors, Calyx is the winner by far because most of the chassis are Calyx. Rally Spain this past weekend saw 9-time world champion, or 8, I don't even know how many world championships Sebastian Ogier has won, but Sebastian Ogier gets a victory for Toyota by 16.4 seconds over Thierry Neuville. The world champion Kalle Rovanperä finished 3rd, 18.1 seconds behind, 34.5 seconds behind. And then Ott Tanak, who has announced he's leaving, the former world champion for Hyundai, is leaving Hyundai finished 44 seconds behind, and Danny Sordo rounds out the top 5. So 3 Hyundais, 2 Toyotas in the top 5. There was 4 Toyotas, and Toyotas finished first, third, sixth, and seventh. Efren Heavens and Takamoto Katsuda. So 6th and 7th. So 4 Toyotas, and then the 3 Hyundais sandwiched in there in the middle. First Ford for Adrian Formeau, finished 8th. Craig Breen 9th. Pierre-Louis Loubet finished 10th. For the Ford team, last race of the championship will be Rally Japan in early November. The standings, Cali Rovampera is out in front, huge. They didn't even put the results here for Rally Spain up here, so on motorsport.com yet. So he's won the world championship, youngest world champion ever. So credit to him and Toyota for building such a great program. Argentina hosted the World Superbike Championship, and Alvaro Bautista spoke about how Johnny Ray has been off a little bit, and he said that they had a chance to possibly break that run that Kawasaki has had where they haven't been able to win races. But in race 1, and they're probably talking about race 1, where Alvaro Bautista won over Johnny Ray, Axel Bassani, Iker Lecuona, Michael Ruben Rinaldi was the top 5. Garrett Gerloff finished 13th. Toprak Raskat Lioku finished 15th, so there was issues there for him. The Super Pole race saw Toprak Raskat Lioku win over Alvaro Bautista and Johnny Ray. Ruben Rinaldi Lowe's top 5. Gerloff 13th again. And then in race 2, Alvaro Bautista gets a victory over Toprak Raskat Lioku, Johnny Ray, Alex Lowe's, Michael Ruben Rinaldi, Javi Vieje, Iker Lecuona, Andrea Locatelli, Scott Redding, Michael Vandermark. Garrett Gerloff finishes 12th. So 2 rounds, 6 total races to go. They'll be in Mandalika, which is, I think, Thailand. So we'll go to Thailand, and then we'll go to Australia and Phillip Island to end the season. The standings going into that, Alvaro Bautista's 75, and he's 83 points up. Toprak Raskat Lioku is 16 points out of Johnny Ray heading into that race there. So that's the battle essentially amongst the top 3. They're in a different zip code. Ruben Rinaldi is pretty comfortable in 4th. Alex Lowe's is only 5 points ahead of Locatelli in 6th, and 11 ahead of Bassani, who was in 7th. Iker Lecuona, Scott Redding, and Javi Vieje, who had a great, decent weekend, ended up gaining ground on Garrett Gerloff in their battle for 10th in the championship. So something to look at. In regards to that, we'll get into the World Superbikes here in a few weeks' time. Supercars will be running at Surfers Paradise. And get into that. So get into the V8 Supercars. Talking about the championship and talking about for next year's schedule. Shane Van Gisbergen won the Bathurst 1000. Is basically going to win this championship. He's dominated this season. the amount of wins he's had. So there's Surfer's Paradise is the last. That's not right. There's Surfer's Paradise and in Adelaide, but more than likely the championship will be determined this weekend at Surfers because Shane Van Gisbergen is up by over. Yeah, he's essentially up by 400 points over Cameron Waters. He's the only person that can possibly stop the Shane Van Gisbergen becoming a 3-time Supercars champion. Anton De Pasquale is in third. Mostert is in fourth. Will Davis in fifth. So the next 4 drivers behind SVG are all going to be Ford guys. Brock Feeney is SVG's teammate. So something to see how he progresses in year 2, taking over for Jamie Winchcup in that ride at 888. We'll talk about that, of course, next week. NHRA in Las Vegas, next to last round of their season coming up. The points going into that, Justin Ashley has an 82-point lead over Brittany Force, 84 over Antron Brown, 96 over Steve Torrens, 118 over Mike Salinas, with 2 races to go, and there's points and a half at Pomona. So big round here for those drivers. Steve Torrens trying to keep his consecutive championship string going. We'll have to have a huge weekend at Las Vegas. Brittany Force has had the 10 fastest runs in Top Fuel history. So if she can set a record, she could get herself back in the mix. And you can never count out Antron Brown. He's a dog. He's an OG Jersey guy. We'll see what he can do in Top Fuel. In Funny Car, Robert Height is 10 points ahead of Ron Capps. Matt Hagan's 78 points back. After that, it's going to be kind of tough. John Force, Bob Tasca. John Force is 137 points back. Bob Tasca is 174 points back. It's really a 3-horse race with 2 races to go. We'll see. You have one Chevy, you have one Toyota, and one Dodge involved in that battle. And then in Pro Stock, it's basically over. I'm assuming if Eric Anders can go some rounds, get some good qualifying points, if she can go a couple of rounds, and if Aaron Stanfield has issues, she's going to end up winning another Pro Stock championship, and she'll probably be happy about it since she's an insurrectionist anyway and a dumb cunt. Matt Smith is 51 points ahead of Joey Gladstone, 103 points ahead of Jerry Savoy, 118 Steve Johnson, 119 on his wife, Angie Smith, 140 over former multiple-time champion Eddie Krawick, 164 on Angel Sampay. So we'll see if Matt Smith can give himself a cushion going into Pomona for what would be yet another title for him in the Pro Stock motorcycle category, where he has been swapping between his Buell and his Suzuki for competitiveness based on the rules. The other big piece of news in regards to the NHRA at Las Vegas is Tony Stewart is going to make his NHRA debut this weekend. Instead of being at the cutoff race for the Cup Series, he's going to be making his NHRA debut running in Top Alcohol Dragster, the Top Alcohol Dragster category, which I mean, that's a really tough category to be able to compete in anyway. He's going to try to qualify and compete in eliminations for McPhillips Racing. They've had the likes of Troy Coughlin Jr., Mike Coughlin, Jasmine Salinas, part of that whole Salinas clan that is part of NHRA in different categories. So they are willing to work with Tony, and Mobile One will be sponsoring him. They announced that and all that. So it's interesting how it's a cool looking car. Yeah. I wish they'll make that diecast. Probably waste a shit ton of money if they do make it. Not a bad looking car though. Big injector and all that. So we'll see what happens with that. If he can go and qualify and make some rounds in his mobile one top alcohol dragster. That's pretty crazy. He's going John Andretti in that spot. I mean, John Andretti didn't. The difference is John Andretti didn't go to top alcohol dragster. He drove a top fuel dragster back in the day. He drove the Taco Bell car. I don't know who ran it, but he drove when he was in between jobs in 1993, before he became a NASCAR driver, essentially full time. He drove a top fuel dragster and ran under 5 seconds, which was huge back in those days. And I think he ran somewhere around just under 300 miles an hour. And so Tony Stewart's going to be running somewhere around 275 to around 270, 280 miles an hour in that alcohol dragster. We'll see what he can do at Las Vegas. Let's get into Mexico preview this coming weekend. Grand Prix, the Mexico Grand Prix of Mexico, whatever you want to call it, Mexico City Grand Prix as they call it in Formula One parlance. We have to go and make some picks. Josh, what are you looking for this weekend? I mean, the constructors battle outside of the top three is intriguing. You have battles between teams 4 and 5, which is Alpine, McLaren. Then you have 6 and 7, which is Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin. And then there's AlphaTauri and Haas, Haas and AlphaTauri 8 and 9. So there's a lot of intrigue there. There's essentially 1.5 rides left. Haas's second seat, and Logan Sargent was announced pending. He does the job at Abu Dhabi to get enough points for super license points. He is going to be Alex Albon's teammate next year in Formula One to be the first full-time American driver since Scott Speed, the first American driver to run in a Formula One Grand Prix since Alexander Rossi in 2015, driving for Manor. But what are you looking for in regards to that? Who do you think is gonna, and what are your thoughts on the race itself? But then who do you think is going to be on the podium this weekend? And is there anybody you might think could go and do something that we wouldn't expect outside of that podium, those podium picks?
Yeah, first of all, starting out with the podium, I think we got to see if Max Verstappen can continue his victory tour in Mexico. He already completed his tour in the United States, and can he go down Mexico and continue to win there. I think that's the first thing you have to look out for, and so far he's been able to do it. So it's hard to go against him for winning the race, but beyond that, I was surprised this past weekend with Lewis Hamilton finishing in second. I thought maybe he might be able to you know challenge for a podium, but I didn't think he would like be in position where like if things actually went right, he could have won the race, like Austin. But you know he's been doing pretty good, this past weekend in you know Austin. So why can't he continue that type of success in Mexico? So I'll go with Lewis finishing second here in Mexico, and then third place. I'm gonna go. Why not go with Sergio Perez in third place? You know, come home to Mexico and finish on the podium in your home Grand Prix. It's a pretty good deal there. So and can see him going and getting that on the podium. I think also for the other storylines, we talked about McLaren versus Alpine in the Constructors Championship. Um, can McLaren get any closer to Alpine in this championship? It's kind of hard to do. We've only got a handful of races left, but certainly possible. Things can happen. I think it's going to be a tough strategy because obviously Ricardo, going out the door, hasn't really performed all that well this year compared to Lando Norris. Whereas Alpine, they've been pretty reliable between Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso. So I feel like maybe you have to lean towards Alpine being favorable in this type of scenario, and so I think Alpine, they have the stronger team, and expect them to come out on the other end for for at least that points battle in the constructors championship. Also talk about Ferrari. Obviously, think they've been up there as well with Charles Leclerc, but I'm just not sure how well they can do in Mexico. And also Carlos Sainz, he spun on the first corner, got taken out by George Russell. Would love to see him make a recovery from that this weekend, but don't think that they'll have the ability like the Red Bull does at this racetrack. So yeah, I'll snub them for the podium, but keep Lewis and Sergio on the podium. But yeah, it should be an interesting race here in Mexico with this car has a lot of challenging corners, and then also the straight at Mexico is pretty long, so should be interesting to see how that plays out. Especially with this new car with the ground effects and the different distribution of downforce that we've seen this season. So we'll have to see how this plays out. But first of all, I think you'll have to see if Lewis can continue his winning streak here in Formula One as we close out the year.
I have a hard time believing he's going to be able to. He had his chance on Sunday, and maybe Brazil with the sprint can help him. Higher downforce of Brazil, crazy things can happen. Maybe the Hondas start failing after they go and put the hammer to Red Bull. But that's something. Did you make a wild card pick on that, or?
Oh, I guess yeah, for the wild card, yeah. I mean, I think I'll go with Lando Norris this week as the wild card. Let's see what he can do against trying to carry the points and get points for McLaren as they go up against Alpine.
Makes sense. That's a good call. I'm going to pick Sergio Perez to win, and basically have the whole entire circuit destroyed. I kind of would sign to see that happen. Would be the first Mexican driver to ever win at the Hermanos Rodriguez circuit. And it'd be good for the series. It'd be good for him for the sacrifices he has made to help Red Bull win both championships. They went and made an engine change, or they made power unit component changes to help him, and he still finished in fourth on Sunday, and he had a car that was really fast. So let's see if Max Verstappen knows how to be a team player. I know he's not known for being able to drive around people who drive hard. Can he actually go and lay over for his teammate for what could be a great box office victory, considering it's Dietrich Mateschitz passing? If Checo Perez wins in Mexico, it'll be huge for the sport. So I'm picking Sergio Perez to win. I'm picking Charles Leclerc to finish second. And I'm picking Max Verstappen to finish third. That's what I picked on the Grid Talk podcast in the preview. Mercedes doesn't have the top end speed to hold up on those straightaways. So I would have put a Mercedes guy on the podium, but I don't believe that. They will tell Max, hey, you're going to be able to win the next two races. Just lay down here. It's good for multiple entities. My wildcard selection here will be Fred Alonso, because he was running well after almost dying yesterday for Mexican GP. Checo to win. And I put Leclerc second, MV third, and wildcard L Lan. Hopefully the Mercedes can do something, but I have more hope for the Mercedes at Brazil coming up in a few weeks' time. We got Xfinity and Cup at Martinsville. So I'm going to end up going first here for the Xfinity series. Brandon Brown's driving for SS Greenlight. That's interesting. Stephen Parsons driving for BJ McLeod. He got 40 for 38. Jesse Luigi, they'll have him in the 34, so I guess that car is going to fail to qualify. Not sure what the owner points are. Curious about that because Emerling Gase. If you're inside of the top 30, he's right on the edge. They're 5 points behind. They're 5 points out of the top 30. The 08 is in 30th. The Emerling Gase 35 is in 29th. The 66 car for MBM is in 32nd, 91. The 91 is in 33rd. So that'll be an interesting battle amongst all those teams from the 38, the 4, 45, 35, 08, 34, 66, 91, and the 6 for JD Motorsports. But to me, 40 for 38 spots. You have Sammy Smith and the 18 for Pilot Flying J. Raja Caruth will be driving for Alpha Prime. Howie DiSavino driving for Alpha Prime as well. Nick Sanchez for Big Machine Records. Big McKine Records if you're Gary Delabate. Ty Gibbs in the 54. JJ Illy. Chris Wrong in the 68. Ronnie Bassett, who failed to qualify. He has Mike Hillman as his crew chief, but they don't have any points. Stephen Parsons driving for, as I said, for BJ McLeod. Josh Williams for DGM. Chad Fincham for MBM. Brandon Brown driving SS Greenlight. 08, as I mentioned as well. So something to look at. There are some interesting guys in the lower teams. I'm going to go and pick. I want to go wild card and I want to go crazy to make the playoff a little more interesting. But I'm going to pick Ty Gibbs to win the race. And I think Justin Allgaier gets in over AJ Allmendinger, which would mean that 3 of the 4 drivers in the final 4 would be junior motorsports drivers. So that's those. And in terms of a wild card selection for this race on Saturday, it's interesting. It's tough, but I look at this field and I'm like, maybe this one, maybe that one. My wild card pick for this weekend's race would be Sammy Smith because he's in a Gibbs car. So I'm hedging in regards to the Xfinity series. I figure Ty Gibbs wins to go and guarantee himself a playoff spot, and that Justin Allgaier passes AJ Allmendinger to get into the final 4. And then Sammy Smith is my wild card. Who are your picks for this race, Josh?
I mean, yeah, those are some good picks there. Sammy Smith, especially, he's been pretty impressive in his, his starts in the 18 car this season. But I'm gonna go. I think for this race, I mean, it's pretty tough. Especially with, I think 3 of the 4 are gonna make it in. With already Barry, Gregson. I think Gibbs makes it in. Allmendinger, I think, like I talked about earlier, he's just got to outrun Allgaier, but it's gonna be, a tough deal. I mean, just to make those picks, I think, it's hard. I'm gonna go say that, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I'll say that AJ Allmendinger wins at Martinsville to advance to Phoenix and in the final 4. I was debating whether I should actually do it or not, but I'm gonna go with it. Why not? They've had an opportunity, in the past. I think Allmendinger has a good chance of winning as long as they can stay up front. I feel like if he isn't up front in the final restart, he's one of those drivers that will try to make a move if he feels like he needs to make a move to win the race. But he also knows how to race smart. So he's a guy I think that could get it done. But as far as a wild
Does
card,
Ty Gibbs make it in over Justin Allgaier?
Yeah. So Ty Gibbs making it over Justin Allgaier.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'm saying that Allmendinger wins.
I got that.
Yeah.
And then who's your wild card?
Wild card. we'll go with it's tough. There's a lot of guys that you can go wild card. I'll go with Daniel Hemrick as a wild card. He's a short track guy in the Xfinity series, and he's been pretty good record. On the short tracks in general, he's comes from the super late model, so we'll go with him as a wild card this week.
All right, so let's go and make the big picks. These are the big ones. Honestly, it's a Cup Series. There's the Xfinity 500 at Martinsville. There's one locked-in driver in the Drivers' Championship. There's two drivers with Joey Logano and Kyle Larson locked in for the Owners' Championship. 36 for 36, so no sweat in terms of any qualifying because of the way the charter system works. We have, what's it called? Bubba Wallace is back. It's one of his best racetracks is Martinsville. Gragson driving the 48. Landon Castle driving the 77. BJ McLeod driving for himself. Motorsport Games. Ty Keebler Gibbs driving the 23. AJ Allmendinger in the 16. Driving with a, what's it called? What's that asshole? A Barstool Sports sponsorship there. Pardon my cheesesteak.
Oh, pardon my cheesesteak. Yeah, pardon my take.
Yeah. So pardon my cheesesteak will be on AJ Allmendinger's car, and JJ Ailey's driving for Rick Ware. You got one race to go. There's a lot of intrigue in regards to this playoff. There's two guys locked in owners. There's one guy locked in drivers. Ross Chastain is plus 19. Clyde is plus 11. Will Byron is plus 5 over Denny Hamlin. So, and then after that, the guys that are behind him have to, essentially win. The last two definitely have to win, but Ryan Blaney hasn't won all year. Trying to get to 20 winners this year, it would be a big spot to where if Ryan Blaney or even Martin Truex, who probably could have won on Sunday, can go and win. Martinsville is hard to pass with this car. It's going to be a lot about qualifying. Will Byron won the race earlier this year and then disappeared after that. Based on the owner points, he's only a point ahead of Kyle Larson, but Kyle Larson already advanced. So the current point standings have him 6 points behind his teammate William Clyde Elliott, the second, for the final playoff spot in the Owners' Championship. A lot to take in there, Josh, but who are you looking at to win? Who are you looking at to advance? And what do you see as a wild card contender in this race at Martinsville?
Yeah, I think for this race, we talked about Denny Hamlin before, and I think you go back to last year how Denny Hamlin should have probably won Martinsville, and ended up getting kind of bumped out of the way by Alex Bowman for it, and lost out on that, but still made it into the playoffs. But I think this time around, I think Denny Hamlin can win to get into the playoffs. But it's going to be a tough deal because, William Byron had a really good car back in May or back in April when they raced at Martinsville. And, it's tough because Martinsville, they didn't have a lot of passing last time around. And the 24 just went and dominated the whole race basically and won. So if they bring back that same car, it will be a tough. But I think Denny Hamlin, he knows this is his best opportunity to probably win a championship right now, especially as later on, as it gets further into the 2311 deal, and he has to give more of his resources and time into being an owner. Right now as a team is still young, you can do that and continue to be a good race car driver. So I think Denny Hamlin goes out and wins, gets into the playoffs, makes it in. I think as far as people getting in, I think Ross Chastain is safe, obviously. And I think Chase Elliott, I think he knows what he needs to do to get in to win, or to make it into the playoffs, or into the championship four. So I think Chase Elliott makes it in, and then of course I have Danny Hamlin winning to get into the final four here, and then of course that leaves out William Byron, Ryan Blaney, Chris Bell, Chase Briscoe. So I guess that's going to be my final four for this year. We'll see if it happens or not. So it's going to be an interesting race. I think for a wild card, go back to the other short track race, high speed short track in Bristol, but nonetheless still a short track. The winner there was Chris Buescher. I think he's made a lot of improvements this year in the Cup Series, and I think he can be a wild card, someone who can flirt with a top 5, top 10 finish here in this race. Someone that can definitely run up front when it counts, and could be a factor, especially in the closing laps if it comes down to it. Where a driver needs position, maybe he's in the way and he races them harder, or puts himself in a position where he might be able to affect the race because he has a better car, or just has better driving technique at that time. So Chris Buescher, definitely I think could be a good wild card this weekend here at Martinsville.
That's a good pick because the RFK cars have been great here recently. And what do you call? Brad's been great there in recent years as well. So I mean, good picks. I put them in our chat here. You had Danny Hamlin to win, Chastain WCE2, along with Joey Logano to be the final four. So there would be one Ford, one Toyota, two Chevys, 4 different teams involved. And then you add Kyle Larson as an owner's championship driver, would make it 5. For me, it's interesting. For me, it's I'm going to end up picking, and this is just total dice roll. There's one person I would pick. He's out of the playoffs, but I'm picking another person that's out of the playoffs right now, or out of the possibility to win a championship, but he could get himself in. I'm picking Ryan Blaney to go and win at Martinsville here on Sunday afternoon. Get himself into the Final Four. Give Penske 2 of the 4 drivers into the Final Four. It would be huge for him. It would be 20 drivers in the 20 winners so far in 35 races. If they go and do that, Ryan Blaney has been one of the more consistent drivers this year. When it comes to the driver points, I'm saying Blaney goes and gets in, which means that Chastain and Elliott, I feel like, as you said, Josh, would get in. So I'm seeing Blaney makes it in, and then Chastain and Elliott get in as well, which would see William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, and Chase Briscoe get eliminated. So I'll go and type that in here. You can go and say something here, Josh, for Cup at Martinsville. Sees
I actually like
YRB
that pick though with Ryan Blaney. We'll go with the even 20 winners this year in the Cup Series.
Chastain. Yep. And WCE2 make the F4. And then I have a wild card selection. So my wild card selection is going to be Bubba Wallace.
Yeah,
It's
solid
one of
pick.
his best racetracks. He's mad. He had to sit home. I'm pretty sure that his fiance had to go and give him a couple handy J's to release some tension.
Maybe a little
Amongst
more than
other
that.
things. Yeah, probably. I'm pretty sure he's whacking off in his rig. So there's probably going to be some mess there, and it's going to affect his driving ability there on iRacing. But he has won in a truck there multiple times. The Gibbs team has shown an ability to win at that racetrack, and Bubba's going to be mad. The guy that got taken out by him a couple weeks ago gets the win in dominant fashion. I'm expecting Bubba Wallace to go out there and show to everybody that he's somebody to be reckoned with as years go on. And I think that Denny Hamlin wants to see that happen personally, even if he doesn't make the Final Four, which honestly I think he has a great chance to, which there would be a similar playoff scenario where if both of those guys are running up front and Bubba needs a win, but his owner is in front of him, he's going to lay over the same way Eric Jones did a couple of years ago. That's something to see, and how NASCAR handles that whole thing. So we've done our previews and picks, who advances. Josh, it's your time here in terms of the sim segment. What have you done in regards to iRacing or some of the other exploits there, and what are you going to be planning to do this week? And also keep in mind, not iRacing related, but I'm sure there's openings on Grid Talk if you are interested. So let's hear about the sim segment.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I just ran one Homestead race last week, on Cup side, and tried to run, that, and wanted to see if I could run the high line like Kyle Larson, like Tyler Reddick and everything, and it's a lot harder than it looks. I guess I guess there's you get loose off of turn 4, off of turn 2, a bunch, and so it's hard to hold the car down. But you can make a lot of time there, if you can get it right with the approach and off throttle time and all that stuff. But and then of course the middle was working there too. But yeah, that was an interesting race. Some people that I was racing with, they took each other out. I forgot where I finished. I think I finished in I don't know, like 13th or 14th. So it wasn't really a, uh, impressive or anything like that. But I just went and ran one race just to see what it was like on there. It was kind of busy last week, some other stuff, but and then was kind of out of the house throughout the weekend. But sometimes I was, that's how it goes. This week iRacing, um, we got Martinsville, uh, and on the Cup Series, uh, and the Xfinity Series. So be looking to try and maybe run one of those races. Uh, Martinsville is a pretty good track for me. Definitely, liked running at Martinsville over the years. When I first got into sim racing, that was the track I was good at. Initially, back on, I mean, even before NR03. Running on NASCAR Thunder 2003 on the PC. That was the first track where I was really good at in sim racing as a kid, and with the Legends series as well, the '87 cars they're running at Michigan, so I always like running that one. It's a lot of tire management and managing your strategy there. IndyCars at Road America on the Fixed Series, so maybe you would like to try that and actually race a road course IndyCar Series race for once. Um, uh, the Open Series is at New Hampshire for the IndyCar Open Setup Series. Um, then you got the other road series racing this weekend or this week. You got um, Mazda MX-5 at Oran Park. Uh, you got see what else?
Is it
The
Alton Park?
no Oran Park, Oran Park.
Oran Park, yeah, in
Yeah,
Australia.
yeah, Australia, and then you have the touring cars. The so that's the Honda Civic Type R and Hyundai Elantra, Hyundai Veloster at Alton Park. So Oran Park and Alton Park. So two two very similarly named uh, race or circuits there. Um, got let's see what else. I'm trying to look at this list. Um, there's a lot of things here. Yeah, um, got maybe the USF 2000s at Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road course. That might be interesting. There, I'm trying to see if we have the let's see open. Well, trying to look for an open wheel race, but you have to sort it by road racing. Um, yeah, so there's always a lot of opportunities to race different series at iRacing across multiple different series. So definitely gonna try to pick it up this week or at some point. Um, and try to run at least a couple. So we'll see when I'm able to do that. Of course, I'll let you know when I do. Yeah, I'll try to get on Grid Talk if I can. I know we talked about it last week and like to try to maybe actually do it. I ended up being out of the house on Saturday, and that's why I wasn't able to do it. And then Sunday I was busy with some other stuff and everything. So I just have to see what my plans are this weekend. I may have to do some things, but I'll try to work it in if I can, and I'll let you know on that end there. Um, yeah, yeah, that's it for me in sim segment. Of course, we got a lot of racing, still left to go here. A couple weeks left here in NASCAR, so it should be interesting. And then Formula One's getting ready to wrap it up, and then that'll be it for this year. So it's been interesting year of racing so far, and we'll still have a couple weeks to go, and still have a few more interesting things to say. But yeah, I mean, you can always find me on Twitch at Twitch TV/USailor2, where I stream my iRacing when I'm able to stream it, and when I want to. So go in there and watch what all my racing stuff. Of course, you can find me on Twitter, JP Huffine, where get my takes off on the Jacksonville Jaguars and where they stand after trading away one of their best offensive players in the last couple of years, and how you should feel about that or not. So yeah, still kind of confused and bewildered, I guess, baffled by the move, but we'll move on, and I guess we'll play Travis Etienne for the rest of the year at RB1 on a passing team. So in a year where passing is low, great foresight on that one. But you can always find our video feeds at Grip Strip Podcast YouTube. Go and subscribe to our channel and subscribe to our page, and like our videos, put on notifications, do whatever you can to support, comment, and all that stuff. And we'll have our videos up there later this week. So yeah, that's it for me. We glad we flipped it over to football to start out, so we can get that off. Of course, interesting weekend of sports as always, and yeah. Yeah. Florida Georgia is this weekend too in Jacksonville. So, hopefully, the Gators kind of in a
cocktail party right there.
Yeah, world's greatest cocktail party, and yeah, I would like to see the Gators go out and beat Georgia, but Georgia's been looking pretty tough last couple years, and Florida's kind of in a rebuilding year, I guess, and they had a couple of good wins this year with the first game of the year they were up against a ranked team and won. But Georgia's been playing pretty tough, and they've kind of been outmuscled the last couple of weeks when it comes to the more physical teams like Kentucky and LSU. So and Tennessee, that lost to them too. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, looks like Georgia's been the better team this year and the last couple of years. So but hopefully they win, because I don't like Georgia, of course, and everything. But yeah, I'll let you close out the rest of the show here, Phil.
Yeah, you're a Florida alum, so I completely understand that. And I bowled with Alabama alums, or at least one Alabama alum, and so I completely understand that. And the fact is, here I'm trying to look at. I'm looking at my fantasy thing because I'm updating the dual point standings. Just a fantasy, but for us, you can find us at GripsterPod on Twitter. You can find us at Gripster Podcast on YouTube, as Josh handles that side of the business. You can find Josh at JP Huffine and USailor2 for his Twitch streams for iRacing. You can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter, where I go and post all different types of things depending on what's going on. We will be back for episode 142 of the Gripster Podcast next week, talking about NASCAR Cup and Xfinity Martinsville. We'll talk about the Mexico Grand Prix in Mexico as well. We'll get into supercars at Surfers Paradise and NHRA this coming weekend. NHRA will also be going this weekend at Las Vegas, which will be the debut of Tony Stewart in a top alcohol dragster. So we'll talk about that in the Grip GSP roundup. It'll be a very short roundup. Kind of figuring we're gonna have Joe on, because it's gonna be a more NASCAR centric show next weekend or next week, because the following week will be, and it will also have MotoGP. So yeah, there you go. So the MotoGP, all the series will be ending their season as well, along with NASCAR next weekend. So we'll preview that on episode 142 of the Gripster Podcast. And episode 143 will be more international based, along with Formula One, because for whatever, Sao Paulo GP, So we'll get into that. But we thank you for listening to Grip Strip Podcast. We thank you for the support. Give us likes, subscribe, let your friends know about the GSP. We talk about sports, we talk about motorsports. I mean, Yankees lost yesterday. Aaron Judge is going to be the MVP of the AL, but he may not be back. So we're probably going to talk about that in December when things slow down a little bit in regards to motorsports. World Supercross ran in Australia, but they don't have results up there, or else I would have talked about it. Ralph Shaheen was announcing that Eli Tomac won all 3 rounds in the first race, trying to instill his power in regards to Supercross supremacy. Something to look at. So we might bring that up next week. But for Josh and myself, thank you for listening to Grip Strip Podcast. We'll be back next week for episode 142. God bless. Take care of one another. Be nice to one another. This society, the way things are, just being nice, just humble, doing your thing pays a lot more than a lot of the horrible crap that we're going through and a lot of the terrible things people are doing to one another. I mean, I'm not somebody who can go and as somebody who has gone through depression and things that I go through and the shit I do on this show proves that if you need help, get help. Don't go and resort to extremes to go and theoretically fix your problem, because at the end of the day, you're not fixing the problem, you're making a bigger problem. But that's probably a discussion for another day in another podcast. For Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to GSP. We'll be back next week for E142. Take care. God bless. Goodbye.